Hi, good morning everyone. We're from the group Asian Vampires, and this is our group members. They are Max, Belle, Dave, Norris, Catherine, Kobe, and me, Vicky. Our topic is the culture and legal change, tobacco control in 21st century Japan. So, what is it about? Basically, it's about culture, conformity, and legal change. After almost half a millennium of tobacco cultivation, nearly a century of government monopolization of tobacco growth, manufacture and sale, and the highest rate of tobacco consumption in the industrialized world, Japan at the end of 20th century had few laws regarding tobacco consumption. The rapid and seismic shift in Japan's legal control of tobacco, a legal change unanticipated and so far unexplained, is the puzzle our presentation seeks to unravel. So, how and why of the change? No single factor can fully explain something as complex and multi-causal as legal change, and our presentation will emphasize on cultural factors, which was critical in bringing out Japan's new legal regime of tobacco control. After 1868 Meiji Restoration in Japan, without clearly labeling it as conformity norm, many scholars have noted the degree to which Japanese individuals and institutions shape themselves in the image of the West.
Now here's another gentleman in evening attire. Wait, let's hold that frame. A kimono topped by a derby. To pursue the same line a little further, we follow a couple of young men in Western clothes right to their door, and off they come. Entering the house, they sit down as is. In some cases, the westernized gentleman may change from his office clothes to Japanese dress. And then he too performs the gymnastic squat. Well, how about the children? At school, and by the way, there's nothing Japanesque about that schoolhouse, the youngsters are in uniforms as Western in style as California play suits. On the way home from school, this trio still looks like three kids.
As observed by a Japanese political scientist, Japan's post-war national identity has been predicted on the need to be more like a West, especially the United States. The ways in which Japan's adoption of Western models was rooted not in efficiency, rationality, or efficacy, but in the quieter forces of conformity and social reproduction. There is, in other words, a widely noticed Japanese tendency of conformity with Western political and social practices. But the implications of that tendency for the understanding of Japanese law have been unexploded. Japanese love smoking. They have their own way. Just several decades ago, many people smoke on the street talking and laughing. Those who do not smoke cannot live apart, and when they come in contact with smokers, it is scarcely fair that the few should be allowed to prohibit the many from the pursuit of their comforts and their pleasure. At that time, there are few regulations regarding to smoking behavior or tobacco control. The denormalization of smoking in West has been duly noted in Japan. The print media regularly highlights the contrast between smoking practices and perceptions in the West and Japan. Fiction writers have popularized it. Japanese overseas travelers have witnessed it. Japanese and non-Japanese companies have built their businesses around associations of smoke-free spaces with Western chic. Those who associate with Western tourists in Japan have been made aware of it. Television dramas and documentaries have portrayed it, and lawmakers have discussed it. The process of the realization was like this. When the gap between the social acceptability of smoking in Japan and the West became uncomfortably wide, Japan's leaders responded by recreating tobacco control laws. It becomes increasingly clear why Japanese officials rapidly enacted a series of tobacco-related laws. By the start of the 21st century, those in Japan who watched television, read the newspaper, took vacation in the United States, ate out, went to the movies, or engaged in a variety of other activities were well aware that smoking and smokers were increasingly shunned in Western states, particularly in the United States. And the norms of acceptable smoking behavior have been fundamentally altered, first through the norms of asking permission to smoke, and ultimately by the rezoning of both public and private space to exclude smoking. It was a remarkable change, not only for the rapidity with which smoking went from a quotidian act to a Tibetan habit, but also for the thoroughness of the transformation. A comprehensive review of the denormalization of smoking in the United States could fill a volume. The fact that so much attention was directed at the gap between the Japan and West, that the media described the situation in Japan so unfavorably, that tobacco control advocates and corporations carefully used the information, and that government officials unambiguously came to see the differences and express their concern about the links and the cascade of the legal changes in Japan to their global context. The conformity norm directly attention to change in the West, and local norm agents translate that attention to norms into domestic legal change. Finally, although local conditions in Japan were once inhospitable to the type of denormalization of smoking seen in West, by the end of the 20th century, those conditions were in flux, and ultimately they serve as a fertile base for the cultivation of Western norms that shunned smoking.
If you smoke in downtown Tokyo, watch out for these guys. The smoking patrol has caught 2 men red-handed smoking in a public area. Since April, that's been against the law in Tokyo's Chiyoda business district. Their punishment, a fine of 2,000 yen, or about $17 US. Toshihiro Kanaho and Toshiaki Ogawa are retired cops hired by the city to keep smokers off the streets. Many out-of-towners have a bad attitude, says Ogawa, but if people refuse to pay, there's not much we can do. Even so, in Japan, the shame of public confrontation is enough to stop most people. And what about their own health? Until now, packs of cigarettes here in Japan weren't even required to carry warnings that smoking causes cancer. But that's changing now, and times are getting a lot tougher for Japan's tobacco monopoly. The government now has plans for stronger warning labels and raised the cigarette tax last week. Not surprisingly, cigarette sales are down. But Japan Tobacco says it will keep on doing all it can to keep smokers as happy as possible, at least wherever it's possible. Rebecca McKinnon, CNN, Tokyo.
Here we are trying to demonstrate the conformity norm mediates the relationship between changes in acceptability of smoking in the West and the newly invigorated regime of tobacco laws in Japan. This is our conclusion. The interaction of the international norms and local culture is a central fact in the creation and transformation of legal rules. And through our presentation, what we really want you to realize is the cultural incentives can really matter to the process of the legal change significantly.